Imagine diving into crystal blue waters off the coast of India, expecting nothing more than coral reefs and curious fish. Instead, your underwater camera captures something impossible: massive stone walls, perfectly carved pillars, and the unmistakable grid pattern of an ancient city stretching across the ocean floor. This isn't science fiction. This is Dwarka, and what archaeologists found there has turned everything we thought we knew about ancient civilizations completely upside down. For over 3,000 years, the Mahabharata told stories of a magnificent city that vanished beneath the waves in a single day. Scholars dismissed it as mythology, beautiful poetry, but nothing more. Then, in 1983, marine archaeologist Dr. S.R. Rao made a discovery that sent shockwaves through the academic world. Using cutting-edge underwater technology, his team found exactly what the ancient texts described: a vast submerged city with walls, bastions, and harbors that matched the epic's descriptions with terrifying accuracy. But here's where this story gets really unsettling. The more they excavated, the more questions emerged. Stone anchors weighing over 560 kilograms, identical to ones used in ancient Syria and Cyprus. Pottery inscribed with Vedic Sanskrit that carbon dating placed at 3,528 years old. Massive fortified structures that could only have been built on dry land, now resting 20 feet underwater. And perhaps most chilling of all evidence that this wasn't a gradual submersion over centuries, but a catastrophic event that swallowed an entire civilization almost overnight. Tonight, we're diving deep into one of archaeology's most controversial discoveries, because what they found beneath the Arabian Sea doesn't just challenge our understanding of ancient India. It forces us to confront a disturbing possibility that advanced civilizations have risen and fallen in ways history never recorded. And if the legends are true, if Dwarka really was destroyed by divine wrath, as the texts claim, then we need to ask ourselves, what other lost cities are waiting to be discovered beneath the world's oceans? The city of Dwarka wasn't just any settlement. According to Hindu scriptures, it was the crown jewel of Lord Krishna's kingdom, a planned metropolis that served as the capital of the Yadava dynasty. The ancient texts describe a city so magnificent that even the gods marveled at its beauty. Massive gates opened onto broad boulevards, lined with palaces built from precious stones. Gardens stretched between towering temples, while harbors bustled with merchant ships from across the known world. But what makes these descriptions so remarkable isn't their grandeur, it's their specificity. The Mahabharata doesn't just say Dwarka was beautiful. It provides detailed architectural blueprints. The city was laid out in a perfect grid system, with 6 distinct sectors separated by broad avenues. The main fortress was built on an artificial island connected to the mainland by bridges. The harbor could accommodate hundreds of ships, with stone jetties extending deep into the Arabian Sea. For centuries, historians treated these descriptions as pure fantasy. Ancient peoples, they argued, simply didn't have the engineering capabilities to build such sophisticated urban centers. The idea of a planned city with advanced harbor facilities dating back 3,500 years seemed preposterous. Then Dr. Rao's team started pulling stone blocks from the ocean floor, and suddenly those impossible descriptions began to look prophetic. The underwater excavations revealed a city that matched the textual descriptions with uncanny precision. Massive stone walls arranged in a defensive grid pattern. Foundation blocks weighing several tons, cut and fitted with a precision that would challenge modern builders. Most remarkably, the team discovered the remains of what appears to be an ancient harbor system, stone jetties, docking platforms, and a sophisticated network of channels designed to accommodate large vessels. The archaeological evidence suggests this wasn't some primitive fishing village that accidentally got mythologized. This was a major urban center with the kind of advanced planning we associate with much later civilizations. The stone anchors alone tell an incredible story. These weren't simple rocks with holes drilled through them. They were sophisticated maritime tools, carved into specific shapes designed for different types of vessels and sea conditions. Some weighed as much as modern car engines, suggesting they were used by substantial trading ships capable of long-distance voyages. Even more intriguing, the anchor designs show clear evolutionary development over time. The earliest examples feature simple, single holes, similar to anchors found at other Harappan sites like Lothal. Later versions become increasingly sophisticated, with multiple holes and complex geometric shapes that mirror anchor technologies developed in the Mediterranean centuries later. This suggests Dwarka wasn't just an isolated city, it was part of an extensive maritime trading network that connected ancient India with civilizations across the Arabian Sea and beyond. The pottery fragments recovered from the site paint an equally fascinating picture. Mixed among the local ceramics are shards that clearly originated from distant lands amphorae, typical of Roman trading vessels, distinctive glazed pottery from Mesopotamia, and ceramic styles that match artifacts found at archaeological sites across the Persian Gulf. If these finds are authentic, they suggest Dwarka was a truly cosmopolitan center, a place where merchants from across the ancient world gathered to trade goods and exchange ideas. But perhaps the most compelling evidence comes from the city's layout itself. Modern satellite imagery and underwater mapping have revealed that the submerged structures aren't randomly scattered across the seafloor. They form a coherent urban plan, with clear districts, organized street systems, and what appears to be a sophisticated water management system. This level of urban planning requires not just engineering skill, but complex social organization, the kind of centralized authority needed to coordinate massive construction projects and maintain a functioning metropolis. The implications are staggering. If Dwarka really was the advanced city described in the ancient texts, then we need to radically revise our understanding of Bronze Age civilization. We're not just talking about a few scattered settlements along the Indian coast. We're looking at evidence of a sophisticated, urban civilization that predates many of the developments we consider foundational to human progress. Yet, the more archaeologists excavate, the more mysterious the site becomes. The construction techniques used in some of the underwater structures don't match anything else found in the archaeological record. Massive stone blocks are fitted together without mortar, using a precision cutting technique that leaves joints so tight you can't slip a knife blade between them. Some of the stones show evidence of having been cut with tools that left marks unlike anything produced by known ancient technologies. The dating evidence only deepens the mystery. While some artifacts clearly date to the historical period described in the texts, others appear much older. Carbon dating of organic materials found in association with the deepest structures has yielded dates that push the site's origins back thousands of years earlier than previously thought. Some researchers have suggested the city may have been built and rebuilt multiple times, with each new settlement constructed on the ruins of its predecessor. This raises a troubling question that archaeologists are reluctant to address publicly. If advanced urban civilizations were rising and falling along India's coast thousands of years before recorded history, what else might be waiting to be discovered? The Arabian Sea alone covers an area larger than India itself. Current underwater archaeological techniques have barely scratched the surface, examining only tiny fractions of the continental shelf where ancient coastal settlements would most likely be found. Recent technological advances are making it possible to survey vast areas of seafloor with unprecedented detail. Side-scan sonar can map underwater topography with resolution measured in centimeters, revealing subtle architectural features buried beneath layers of sediment. Remote-operated vehicles equipped with high-definition cameras can explore depths that would be impossible for human divers, documenting discoveries in real time without disturbing fragile archaeological contexts. But these same technologies that make discovery easier also reveal how much we've already lost. Every storm that churns the seafloor, every trawling net that scrapes across ancient foundations, every year of saltwater corrosion removes irreplaceable pieces of the archaeological record. The race to document and understand these underwater sites isn't just academic, it's a battle against time itself. The story of Dwarka isn't just about one lost city. It's about confronting the possibility that human civilization is far older, far more complex, and far more fragile than we ever imagined. What makes the Dwarka discovery truly unsettling isn't just what archaeologists found, it's what they found missing. When Dr. Rao's team first descended to the seafloor in 1983, they expected to find scattered ruins, broken pottery, the typical debris field you'd associate with a settlement gradually claimed by rising seas. Instead, they discovered something that defied explanation: entire city blocks that appeared to have been abandoned in perfect order, as if the inhabitants had simply walked away moments before the waters arrived. The evidence suggests this wasn't a slow decline, wasn't centuries of gradual submersion as sea levels rose. This was catastrophic, sudden, complete. Cooking vessels were found still containing remnants of their last meals. Tools lay scattered in workshops, as if craftsmen had dropped them mid-task. Most chilling of all, the team discovered what appeared to be evacuation routes, wide channels leading from the city center toward higher ground, filled with personal belongings that suggested people had fled, carrying whatever they could grab. But fled from what? The geological evidence paints a terrifying picture. Core samples from the sea floor show distinct sediment layers that tell the story of that final day. Beneath the normal marine deposits that have accumulated over millennia lies a thick band of terrestrial soil, mixed with debris stones, pottery fragments, organic matter, all jumbled together in a way that speaks to massive, violent disruption. Above this chaos layer, pure marine sediments, as if the sea had reclaimed the land completely and permanently. Some geologists believe they're looking at evidence of a massive tsunami, a wall of water that could have overwhelmed coastal defenses in minutes. Others point to signs of sudden land subsidence, possibly triggered by a major earthquake that dropped entire sections of the coastline below sea level almost instantaneously. Either scenario would explain how a thriving metropolis could vanish so completely that it passed from history into legend. But here's what keeps researchers awake at night. The ancient texts describe exactly this kind of catastrophic destruction, and they do it with a precision that suggests eyewitness accounts. The Mahabharata doesn't just say Dwarka sank, it describes the sea suddenly breaking the boundary that was imposed on it by nature, rushing through streets and covering buildings one by one. Arjuna, witnessing the destruction, describes watching the beautiful buildings becoming submerged as the ocean reclaimed the land Krishna had borrowed from it. This level of detail in texts written thousands of years ago raises uncomfortable questions about how much the ancients really knew about their own history. Were these purely mythological accounts, or were they preserving actual memories of real catastrophes? And if they were recording real events, what else in these ancient texts might be more than just storytelling? The pattern emerging from underwater archaeological sites around the world suggests Dwarka might not be unique. Off the coast of Japan, divers have found the Yonaguni Monument massive stone structures that some researchers believe show signs of human modification. Near India's southern tip, the submerged city of Mahabalipuram has yielded temples and sculptures that predate known coastal settlements. In the Mediterranean, entire harbors lie beneath the waves, their stone jetties and breakwaters testament to civilizations that thrived when sea levels were dramatically different. What's becoming clear is that our ancestors built their greatest cities, where we can no longer see them, along ancient coastlines now drowned beneath hundreds of feet of ocean. The continental shelves that ring every major landmass were once vast coastal plains, fertile river deltas, and protected harbors perfect for the kind of maritime civilizations described in humanity's oldest stories. When the last ice age ended and sea levels rose by over 400 feet, these prime real estate areas vanished beneath the waves, taking with them any evidence of the civilizations that might have flourished there. The implications are staggering. If advanced urban centers, like Dwarka, were common along ancient coastlines, then the archaeological record we've been using to understand human development represents only a tiny fraction of what actually existed. We've been trying to piece together the story of civilization using evidence from the highlands and interior regions, essentially the ancient equivalent of suburbs and backwater towns, while the real centers of population, trade, and cultural development lie invisible beneath the world's oceans. This realization is forcing archaeologists to completely reconsider their timelines for human development. Technologies we thought were invented in particular places at particular times might actually be far older, far more widespread. The sophisticated harbor engineering found at Dwarka, for instance, suggests ancient Indians had mastered complex maritime construction techniques thousands of years before similar technologies appeared in the Mediterranean. The extensive trade networks, evidenced by foreign pottery and anchor designs, indicate global commerce on a scale we never imagined possible in the Bronze Age. But the most disturbing aspect of the Dwarka discovery isn't what it tells us about the past, it's what it suggests about the future. If sea level changes could erase entire civilizations so completely that they survived only in myth and legend, what does that mean for our own coastal cities? Today, over 40% of the world's population lives within 100 kilometers of a coastline. The world's largest cities, New York, London, Tokyo, Mumbai, are all built at sea level, protected by the same kind of confidence in stable geography that once made Dwarka seem eternal to its inhabitants. Climate scientists warn that we're entering a period of rapid environmental change that could rival anything in recorded history. Sea levels are rising faster than at any time in human memory. Extreme weather events are becoming more frequent and more severe. The geological forces that once swallowed Dwarka, earthquakes, tsunamis, sudden land subsidence, remain as active today as they were 3,000 years ago. The excavation teams working at Dwarka often speak about the eerie sensation of swimming through streets that once bustled with life, of running their hands along stone walls that once echoed with conversation and laughter. These aren't just archaeological sites, they're warnings written in stone and sediment, messages from civilizations that thought they were permanent, that believed their achievements would endure forever. And perhaps most unsettling of all, the work at Dwarka has revealed how quickly nature can reclaim even our most ambitious constructions. Despite being built from massive stone blocks fitted with incredible precision, despite representing the pinnacle of ancient engineering, the city's ruins are already being transformed by their underwater environment. Coral grows between the foundation stones. Marine life has colonized the ancient walls. The sea that destroyed Dwarka is now slowly erasing the evidence that it ever existed at all. The race to document and understand these submerged archaeological sites isn't just about satisfying historical curiosity. It's about learning from civilizations that face the same environmental challenges we're confronting today, and understanding how quickly everything we consider permanent can slip beneath the waves and pass from reality into legend. Standing in the laboratories where artifacts from Dwarka are analyzed, researchers describe an almost supernatural experience. Stone anchors that weigh as much as modern automobiles, carved with a precision that rivals contemporary manufacturing, pottery shards, bearing inscriptions in scripts that predate known writing systems by centuries, metal objects forged using techniques that metallurgists struggle to explain even today. Each discovery forces them to confront a reality that challenges everything they thought they knew about ancient capabilities. The most unnerving finds aren't the large architectural elements, it's the small, personal items that speak to lives interrupted without warning. A child's toy boat, carved from driftwood, and still clutched in what appears to be tiny skeletal fingers. Jewelry scattered along what were once busy streets. as if dropped by people running for their lives. Cooking pots filled with grains that carbon dating places at the exact moment of the city's destruction, suggesting meals were being prepared when disaster struck. But what truly haunts the excavation teams are the human remains themselves. Unlike typical archaeological sites where burials follow cultural patterns, the skeletons at Dwarka tell a story of chaos and terror. Bodies found in doorways, as if people died trying to escape their homes. Families huddled together in what appear to be basement shelters, their final moments preserved in positions that speak to overwhelming fear. Most disturbing of all, the complete absence of elderly remains in the evacuation routes, suggesting that when the end came, only the young and strong had any chance of fleeing. The forensic evidence paints a picture so vivid it feels like reading a disaster report from yesterday rather than examining ruins from millennia past. Fracture patterns on bones, consistent with crushing injuries. Lung cavities filled with sediment that matches the geological signature of massive flooding. Teeth showing stress markers that indicate prolonged periods of malnutrition before the final catastrophe, as if the city's inhabitants knew disaster was coming and had been struggling to survive for months or years before the waters finally claimed them. This pattern of prolonged stress, followed by sudden destruction, appears throughout the archaeological record at Dwarka, and it's a pattern that makes modern researchers deeply uncomfortable, because it suggests this wasn't just a natural disaster, it was the culmination of environmental pressures that built over time until they reached a breaking point. Climate data extracted from coral cores and deep-sea sediments indicates the region experienced decades of extreme weather in the centuries before Dwarka's destruction. Severe droughts alternated with devastating floods. Monsoon patterns shifted unpredictably. The very environmental stability that had allowed the city to flourish was slowly unraveling. Sound familiar? Today's climate scientists recognize these same warning signs in our contemporary environmental data. The same kind of increasing volatility, the same acceleration of extreme events, the same breakdown of the stable weather patterns that human civilization has always depended upon. The difference is that we have the technology to see what's coming, to measure the changes in real time and model their potential consequences. The question is whether we have the wisdom to act on that knowledge before we repeat Dwarka's fate. The excavation logs from Dr. Rao's expeditions contain entries that read more like horror stories than scientific reports. Divers describe descending through perfectly preserved temple chambers where the carvings on the walls seem to watch them as they work. Underwater photographers report equipment malfunctions in certain areas of the site, cameras that refuse to focus, sonar devices that return impossible readings, metal detectors that spin wildly as if responding to magnetic fields that shouldn't exist. Local fishermen who've worked these waters for generations speak in hushed tones about the singing stones underwater formations that produce haunting musical tones when currents flow past them. They describe nights when the sea above the ruins glows with an eerie phosphorescence, and mornings when nets pulled from Dwarka's waters contain fish species that haven't been seen in these parts for decades, as if the ancient city is somehow calling back creatures from its own time. The scientific community dismisses these accounts as folklore, the kind of supernatural explanations that always spring up around archaeological discoveries. But the researchers who've spent months working the site aren't so quick to rationalize everything away. There's something about Dwarka that gets under your skin, they say. Something that makes you question whether the boundary between past and present is as solid as we pretend it to island. The deeper excavations have revealed architectural features that shouldn't exist according to current understanding of ancient engineering. Channels carved through bedrock that follow no logical pattern, but somehow create acoustic effects that amplify sound in specific directions. Stone chambers with walls so smooth, they reflect light like mirrors, achieved through polishing techniques that remain mysterious, even to modern craftsmen. Most puzzling of all, metallic objects embedded in the city's foundation stones, not decorative elements, but functional components that seem to serve purposes no archaeologist can identify. Attempts to analyze these anomalous artifacts using standard archaeological methods have yielded results that raise more questions than they answer. The metallic objects contain alloy compositions that don't match any known ancient metallurgy. Some incorporate elements that are rare, even today, requiring extraction techniques that supposedly weren't developed until the industrial age. Others show signs of having been manufactured using processes that leave microscopic signatures, unlike anything in the historical record. When these findings are presented at academic conferences, they're met with polite skepticism from mainstream archaeologists, who suggest contamination, later intrusion, or simply misinterpretation of natural geological processes. But the researchers who've examined the artifacts firsthand know they're looking at something that doesn't fit conventional explanations. The question isn't whether these objects are authentic. The question is what civilization could have created them, and why no other traces of such advanced technology have survived in the archaeological record. The answer might lie in the unique preservation conditions at Dwarka. Unlike terrestrial archaeological sites, where organic materials decay and metal corrodes over centuries, the underwater environment has created a kind of time capsule. The constant temperature, the protective layer of sediment, the absence of oxygen in the deeper deposits, all these factors combine to preserve materials that would have vanished long ago on dry land. This means that Dwarka might represent our first glimpse of what Bronze Age technology actually looked like when it was functioning, rather than the corroded fragments and scattered ruins we usually find. If ancient civilizations really did achieve levels of sophistication that we've underestimated, then sites like Dwarka would be among the few places where evidence of those achievements could survive intact. But preservation comes with a price. Every day that passes, every storm that stirs the seafloor, every degree of temperature change in the ocean removes a little more of what remains. The very waters that protected these artifacts for millennia are now becoming increasingly acidic due to carbon absorption from the atmosphere. Coral reefs that have stabilized the ruins for centuries are bleaching and dying as ocean temperatures rise. The archaeological site that has survived for 3,000 years might not survive another century of environmental change. The urgency of this situation has sparked a new kind of archaeology rapid response excavation teams that work around the clock to document and preserve what they can before it's lost forever. Using techniques borrowed from disaster relief operations, they deploy to underwater sites with military precision, extracting maximum information in minimum time. Every artifact recovered, every measurement taken, every photograph captured could be the last chance to understand civilizations that are vanishing beneath the waves for the second time in history. Yet even as they race against time to preserve the past, these archaeologists can't shake the feeling that they're also looking at the future. The same environmental pressures that destroyed Dwarka are building again, but on a global scale. The same warning signs that appeared in the geological record before the ancient city's destruction are appearing in contemporary climate data. The same kind of civilizational confidence that once made Dwarka's inhabitants believe their city would last forever is visible in our own attitudes toward permanence and progress. Standing on research vessels anchored above the ruins, watching divers disappear into the depths to excavate streets that once rang with children's laughter and merchants' calls, you can't help but wonder, are we archaeologists studying the past, or are we future ruins examining our own destiny? The stones of Dwarka have no answer, but they continue to whisper their warning across the millennia that nothing built by human hands is permanent, and that the sea always reclaims what it has lent. The implications of what lies beneath Dwarka's waters extend far beyond a single lost city. As marine archaeologists push deeper into the sediment layers, they're uncovering evidence of multiple occupation periods, not just one civilization, but layer upon layer of human settlement, stretching back through millennia. Each stratum tells its own story of rise and decline, of communities that built upon the ruins of their predecessors, unaware that they too would someday join the archaeological record. The deepest excavations have revealed foundation stones that predate the Krishna-era city by thousands of years. These aren't the sophisticated dressed stones found in the upper levels, but massive megalithic blocks that speak to an entirely different construction tradition. The builders of these earliest structures used techniques that seem almost primitive by comparison, yet somehow managed to create foundations so stable that later civilizations built directly on top of them for centuries. What's emerging is a picture of Dwarka, not as a single lost city, but as a palimpsest, a manuscript where each new text is written over the faded remains of the last. The Krishna-era settlement that features so prominently in the ancient texts appears to have been merely the most recent chapter in a story that stretches back into prehistory. Each layer of occupation shows evidence of increasing sophistication, as if successive civilizations learned from their predecessors, building higher, stronger, more elaborate structures in an endless cycle of ambition and destruction. The pottery sherds from the deepest levels are unlike anything found elsewhere in the archaeological record. They're fired at temperatures that require kiln technology far more advanced than anything known from that time period. The clay itself contains mineral compositions that don't match local geology, suggesting either extensive trade networks or sources of raw materials that have since been exhausted or submerged. Most intriguingly, many of these ancient ceramics bear decorative motifs that appear to be proto-writing symbolic systems that evolved over centuries into the scripts found on later artifacts. But it's the organic remains that tell the most haunting story. Preserved in the anaerobic conditions of the deepest sediment layers are fragments of wood, cloth, and other perishable materials that provide glimpses into daily life in these ancient settlements. The wood shows evidence of sophisticated joinery techniques, with mortise and tenon connections that wouldn't look out of place in a modern workshop. The textile fragments reveal weaving patterns of extraordinary complexity, suggesting a level of craft specialization that requires large, stable populations to support. Even more remarkable are the seeds and grain samples preserved in storage vessels from various time periods. These reveal a systematic program of agricultural development that spans millennia, with each successive civilization improving crop varieties and farming techniques. The earliest samples show wild grass species gradually transformed through selective breeding into the grain varieties that would later support urban populations. It's a process that supposedly took thousands of years to develop elsewhere, yet here it appears to have been accomplished in a fraction of the time. This accelerated development pattern appears throughout the Dwarka archaeological record. Technologies that emerged slowly over centuries in other parts of the ancient world seem to have been rapidly adopted and improved upon by the site's inhabitants. Metallurgy that took generations to perfect elsewhere appears fully developed in the earliest metal-working artifacts. Construction techniques show sudden leaps in sophistication between occupation layers, as if knowledge was being acquired from external sources rather than developed locally. Some researchers have begun to theorize that Dwarka might have been a kind of ancient technological center, a place where innovations from across the known world were gathered, studied, and refined. The evidence of extensive trade networks, the sophisticated harbor facilities, the presence of foreign pottery and anchor designs, all point to a cosmopolitan city that served as a hub for the exchange of more than just goods. It was a place where ideas flowed along with commodities, where techniques developed in distant lands were combined and improved upon by local craftsmen. This interpretation gains support from analysis of the site's urban planning across different time periods. Each successive city shows evidence of learning from the failures of its predecessor. Drainage systems become more sophisticated. Building foundations grow stronger. Harbor facilities are expanded and improved. It's as if each generation inherited not just the physical infrastructure of the past, but also the accumulated wisdom about how to build better, stronger, more resilient communities. Yet all of this accumulated knowledge, all of these technological advances, all of these improvements in urban planning and construction technique, none of it was enough to save the city when the final catastrophe struck. The evidence suggests that the inhabitants of the Krishna-era settlement were well aware of the risks they faced. The evacuation routes found throughout the city weren't hastily constructed escape paths. They were carefully planned infrastructure, built over decades in preparation for the disaster everyone knew was coming. Recent analysis of the evacuation routes has revealed something that sends chills down the spines of modern urban planners. The pathways weren't just designed to move people quickly away from the coastline, they were engineered to handle specific types of disasters. Some routes lead to high ground suitable for escaping floodwaters. Others terminate at reinforced structures that could serve as shelters during seismic events. Still others connect to underground chambers that appear designed as long-term refuges, stocked with supplies and equipped with ventilation systems. This level of disaster preparedness suggests a civilization that had learned hard lessons from previous catastrophes, that had developed sophisticated understanding of the environmental risks they faced. Yet, despite all their preparation, despite all their accumulated wisdom and advanced technology, they couldn't prevent their ultimate destruction. The question that haunts researchers is, if they couldn't save themselves with all their knowledge and preparation, what hope do we have? The parallel between ancient Dwarka and modern coastal cities becomes impossible to ignore when you examine the geological evidence. Core samples from the seafloor show that the region experienced multiple episodes of environmental stress before the final submersion. Sea levels fluctuated dramatically, storm patterns intensified, seismic activity increased. The same warning signs that appear in contemporary environmental monitoring data were building in the centuries before Dwarka's destruction. The ruins of Dwarka lie silent beneath 20 feet of Arabian Sea water, but their message echoes louder than any alarm. What we've discovered there isn't just the remains of a lost civilization, it's a mirror reflecting our own fragile existence. Every stone anchor, every perfectly fitted foundation block, every artifact that speaks to sophisticated urban planning serves as a reminder that permanence is an illusion we tell ourselves to sleep better at night. The ancient texts warned us. The geological evidence confirms it. The archaeological discoveries prove it beyond doubt. Civilizations rise, flourish, and vanish beneath the waves faster than anyone imagines possible. And if you think we're somehow different, if you believe our modern technology makes us immune to the forces that swallowed Dwarka, then you haven't been paying attention to the warnings that are building all around us right now. The stones beneath the sea are trying to tell us something. The question is, are we brave enough to listen?